This is LV426 sending a distress call to all horror fans, requesting immediate assistance. Your attendance is mandated. This is not a drill. We have discovered a crash landing of an unidentified craft of unknown origin. The pilot is presumed dead, but his cargo is dormant. It is of vital importance that, for first contact, personnel play host when engaging any life forms. Any and all perfect organisms discovered can and will be admired for its purity, unclouded by conscience, remorse, or delusions of morality. Failure to comply will result in forfeiture of bonuses. All other priorities are hereby rescinded. This operation is classified and mission has been deemed Crew Expendable. Lycans and gentlemen, children of the night, nocturnals, night terrors, and all things that go bump in the night. Welcome to your monthly treatment of shock therapy. The doctor will see you now. Show me your woes, and I'll cure all that ails you. Consider me your night watchman for tonight's festivities. Here at the Mind's Eye Theater, I invite you to violate curfew along with me for this graveyard shift. I am your horror host incarnate for this sold-out show. First, shout-outs are in order to new YouTubers. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Manuyan? One moment.
You are all my children now.
Next is simply Sean.
You are all my children now.
And finally we have Kunal's Celebration.
You are all my children now.
So, gentlemen and potentially ladies, welcome to the dark side. So, we have on tap for tonight one of, if not the absolute favorite movie of mine. I adore this movie. It is tied for my favorite film of all time. And boy, how can I even begin to describe this film? Actually, you know what? I'll do so during the watch party. But it's such a seminal film. It has to be the quintessential sci-fi horror film. In fact, I know that it is, just because it has been emulated so very many times. There are even films that quite frankly ripped off the alien in this movie that I still like. And usually I'm very critical of ripoffs, but man, the alien in this movie is just, it's superb. It absolutely revolutionized practical effects, like the man in a costume, so very well, and serves as kind of an BCAD in many aspects and many forms. I absolutely champion this movie as top-notch, one of the best to ever have done it, in terms of its own genre, and certainly in terms of the overall tapestry of horror that I'm happy to say. So, usually when I have a film that we are reviewing here for the watch party, I have a little thing that I would like to refer to affectionately as the totem pole. So, here are your options for your viewing pleasure. Your options are bottom of the barrel, shallow grave, mid-level, and high stakes. So, these are the options for you to pick from. Regarding what your film rating is in the event that you've never seen the movie that we have on tap, or if you have seen it before and wish to disclose what your sentiments are. And obviously, we got to go with bottom of the barrel for this one. I'm kidding, of course. I am putting up the poll now for everyone to be able to vote on in the YouTube chat that is now available to you. I, again, will direct your attention to the live chat. It'll be at the very top. And if you could cast your vote, it'd be greatly appreciated. Just a little form of engagement here for the watch party. Yeah, I mean, we'll go through just the pure brilliance and majesty of it. I was going to save this, much like yesterday's watch party, for down the road, because obviously this movie is celebrating a 45th anniversary, which I cannot believe it's already been that long. At the tail end of the 2020 decade, this film will be a half century. And shout out for that birthday of yours. So, again, the totem pole is live for all of you. I will be making reference to it throughout our watch party. So first, I invite all of you to stream the film along with me. Queue it up on Hulu. Let me take care of a couple of housekeeping items. I'll be providing timestamps throughout the watch party to make sure that your viewing experience is synced up with my own, as well as for the convenience of anyone joining who is casually late to the party. So, this watch party is brought to you in partnership with Hotness TV. I will actually be submitting my editorial for the May edition of the magazine, so I will be making a mention of that next week, as well as I'll be posting on my socials when it is available, most likely Monday, May the 1st. It'll most likely be a preview, recommendation watch lists of horror movies to get your summer lit. If you are in the market, we have as sponsors for the watch party Jabra headsets and Samsung devices. Since summer brings sales for all of us, I would highly recommend and humbly ask if all of you could use the link in the description. It helps the channel out tremendously. As an affiliate, we have Mental Health and Horror, an upcoming horror documentary, which I very much am looking forward to. I like that it serves as a rejoinder to the benefits of watching horror movies, as well as how it allows for a level of escapism. So it finally provides in documentary form a rejoinder to all those that have always complained that allegedly horror movies are bad for people, which is like, really? Let's just stop. Let's see. When that comes out, I am going to do not just a watch party of the documentary, but absolutely a review of it. So, as you can see up top, if you wish to support the watch party, the support link is there for you via PayPal. If you're of a mood, I'll just consider it your pound of flesh. So, the streaming service that we use to watch the watch parties is brought to us by Streamlabs, who are also generous enough to give us our own merch store. So, if you are interested, the link is in the description of this video. So, we are coming to you live, streaming on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Rumble, and Instagram. In the enduring battle between Incarnate and the algorithm, my fans are my strongest weapon. Therefore, I humbly request you get them likes up. So, without further ado, we now offer you this creature presentation. Excuse me. Easy for me to say, right? So, Igor, throw the switch. And again, we're watching on Hulu, so brace yourselves for annoying commercials that spoil our fun. Like this one here. So we got a minute and a half, so let me just jump right to it. So Dan O'Bannon's original draft title was Star Beast. I'm sure many people have heard that, but he was never happy with it for obvious reasons. It was only after reading his script that he noted how many times the word alien appeared and realized that it was a perfect title. It works as a noun and an adjective, and surprisingly it had never been used as a film title before. Ridley Scott himself cites three movies that shaped influences on this film. First would be Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, which came out just 2 years before this film. Then you have 2001, A Space Odyssey, that came out at the tail end of the 1960s, 68 to be exact, for their depiction of outer space, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which came out the same decade, 5 years prior to Alien. And he sought inspiration from this film for its treatment of horror. And film is starting now. God, that old 20th century logo. I remember watching this movie in my great aunt's house, on VHS. This was definitely, I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine, my best friend actually, over how I would go to Blockbuster. Blockbuster really was like my library. I would go there. This opening titles sequence is iconic to the point that Prometheus shamelessly ripped it off. Anyway, I would lose hours of time going to Blockbuster and checking out, whatever they had on sale, but whatever they had for any of us schlubs to take a look at, to read through. By read through, I mean flip the box cover to the back, the cassette cover to the back. You could always find me in one of two places, either in the video game section, which was kind of funny because I didn't have I had, a Genesis. I didn't have a PlayStation until way into my teenagehood. But you would always find me in the horror section. And it's funny because it was almost like I was daring myself to do that, going into the horror section and looking at all the creepy, how can I put the box covers, which was basically the miniature version of the movie poster, and then daring myself to look at the back and read them. I swear, if I was like at an Indian magazine stand, I'd be yelled at and scolded to, that it's not a library. If I'm not gonna buy it, then put it down and leave. Here we go. The cathedral-looking Nostromo. I always found it interesting that it's this enormous of a vessel, of a towing vehicle, and yet it's that enormous. I mean, it's that enormous, and it's only populated by seven crew members. That's kind of odd. So Ridley Scott. I'm sorry. Dan O'Bannon requested that Ridley Scott and producer Walter Hill, both of whom had little knowledge of horror or science fiction cinema, he asked that they screen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to prepare for shooting the more intense scenes. Scott and Hill were stunned by the horror movie and admitted it motivated them to ratchet up the intensity of their own movie, being Alien. Now, I'm going to be honest. People have always been enamored with this retro futuristic style of the 1970s, and especially this movie. Me, not so much. And maybe I'm spoiled by Star Trek, where everything looks comfy, cozy, and like a hotel, as opposed to cramped corridors. Believe me, I am completely bought into claustrophobia. I acknowledge that. as with the key component for this movie. But I don't know. Again, I'm spoiled by, and like I get it in terms of mood and setting. That's very important. But in terms of the retro future style itself, it's never been my cup of tea. There's a upcoming video game called Routine that has that level of like throwback impression of what the past thought our future would look like. And look, don't get me wrong, I absolutely lambast movies like Doom, the 2005 film, for not having its setting looks bereft of identity. But it's absolutely possible that you could have a film that whose aesthetic in terms of its future setting just doesn't appeal to me. So I commend that this movie has an identity, but just I don't know. I don't jive. Like, look at this. It just looks like the inside of a throwback car from the 90s. It doesn't do it for me. And getting back to my point about Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Star Wars influencing this movie. See, this was at a time where you could be influenced by a film without directly ripping it off. So Alien is has influence of Star Wars and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it's not like you see a nudge, nudge, wink, wink throughout this film that's even referencing the other two. You know what I mean? It's not like they're shamelessly ripping off a splatter scene from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Not that Texas Chainsaw Massacre has splatter scene, but you get my point. It's not like they need to reference A New Hope. And I see that so often in modern cinema, and it really bothers me. I think it's pointless. Like, I wouldn't go there. You know what I mean? Dude's got an elbow in his elongated neck. But again, I do appreciate that there is a style to the background, to your actual setting. This scene has also been ripped off where, the the crew, like you getting to know the crew by them being around the watering hole or the dinner table in this point. So many of the interior features of the Nostromo were inspired by images of airplane graveyards. Where was the cat? Smoking in a spaceship. Could you imagine? I forgot that they jump right in. We're not even 10 minutes in. So according to Parker, who is played by Yaphet Kotto, Ridley Scott told him to annoy Sigourney Weaver off camera so that there would be genuine tension between their characters. Kodo regretted this because he actually came to like Sigourney Weaver. And it's also a shame because, to be honest, I find his character particularly annoying in this movie. Yeah, this computer section is also kind of meh to me as well. I do like that in the Blu-ray of this movie that the interface is based off of Mother. I thought that was a nice touch. Yes, everything here is so look at that cockpit. Everything is like so smothered. I have more space sitting here on a gaming chair than they do. Those spires were supposed to be like cathedrals. They had a different set designers working on the Nostromo on the human vessels as opposed to the alien world as well as the alien ship, which I appreciate that touch. For all the talk about how this is a haunted house in space, it has like a factory looking with the metal grating, which kind of reminds me of just Freddy Krueger's place of work. Pfft, that's a fact. Bitch. He got punked. You don't say. Do tell. Someone wants to say hello. They want to give you a big hug. No, you may not. Why would that be? Why would why would that apply to a commercial vessel? Then again, who knows what companies slip into their fine print? And an ad. So, according to myth, the name of the company, Wayland Yutani, the spelling was changed to Wayland with a D Yutani in the Aliens, the sequel, and in later movies. It was taken from the names of Ridley Scott's former neighbors, whom he hated. So he decided to dedicate the name of the evil company to them. So in reality, the name was created by conceptual designer Ron Cobb, who created the Nostromo and the crew's uniforms to imply a corner of the on the spacecraft market by an English-Japanese corporation. According to him, he would have liked to use Leyland Toyota, but obviously could not. So he changed one letter in Leyland and added the Japanese name of his, not Scott's, neighbor. I had to watch this on VHS when I was a kid because if I remember correctly, whenever it would come on like syndicated TV, it would, you know how those would go. Like I'm happy that, Channel 11 would play these movies, but at the same time they would always cut out the good parts. As much as I grew up on cartoons like Ninja Turtles and Batman and Gargoyles and all that stuff, I absolutely also grew up on horror movies. I make no bones about it. Pun very much intended. Look like big boobs. We're back to the movie, by the way. How funny, I was just mentioning watching this on Channel 11, and now with streaming, I have to deal with commercials. You see what I suffer for you guys? I do have this movie on Blu-ray, and I'm pretty sure it came with a down... Actually, I don't know if I ever added this, the digital code. I got to do that once the stream is over, so I never have to deal with this again. Stupid commercials. Pretty stock standard that whenever you show a planet in sci-fi, it has to have rings. I don't remember when it was I saw like a commercial of Alien, but I was like, it's funny because by the time I had seen the commercial, I had already seen the movie, and I'm just like, from the commercial, they show the alien itself, I think once, and I was like, what the hell? Even as a kid, I'm like, what? Come on, I want to see more of the alien. I've always been that way. Like, I understand and appreciate as an adult you don't want to and honestly can't show too much of your monster. Oh, but I hate it. I always used to hate it when I wouldn't get enough of the monster, either from the trailer or the movie itself. I always knew if I became a movie director, oh my god, I would have to struggle so very much. Like, if I had just a badass monster, I would have to struggle against myself to not show it too much. In fact, especially because I am a huge monster fan, as well as a fan of, oh, thank you, Japan Real just started following me on Rumble, so shout out to you. Yeah, I would have to fight against myself not to show too much of the monster because I'm a huge monster fan, as well as an admirer of makeup effects. So I've always empathized with oh my god, John Landis, the director of An American Werewolf in London, just because he's always gone back and forth over whether he showed too much of the werewolf. And I'm like, I get it, but at the same time, I mean, it's a great effect. And additionally, I've always subscribed, or how can I put it? I do have an appreciation for Clive Barker because he feels the same way, even though the priest in Hellraiser wasn't showed very much. In fact, just a few under 10 minutes of screen time does Pinhead actually have. But Angelica, oh, shout out to Angelica Vallon, just liked the video on Facebook, so shout out to you. I appreciate that. Yes, I've always subscribed to Clive Barker's mode of thinking because Clive Barker believes in showing the monster, but the genius, and this is the difference between directors of the past, like, the the icons, the absolute legends versus modern day horror directors. The genius of Clive Barker is he would show you the monster, but he would show you Candyman and he would show you Hellraiser. But here's the thing. The way that these characters speak and what they say, their dialogue, is arguably scarier than their appearance. And believe me, their appearance is gruesome. It's frightening. It's just the fact that they're the hypnotic, wispy, raspy voice of Candyman. Oh my god, the stuff of nightmares, and nobody can deny that. But that's arguably what makes the monster even scarier. And again, it's like he shows the monster, sure, but it's definitely that added factor to the equation that really brings the monster over the top. And I would like to believe that part of the reason for that is what Freddy Krueger was able to accomplish with his the fact that he was a monster with a personality. So I guess they had less than a smooth landing. What a dick. Wow, they completely wrecked their ship just by landing. Nice Christmas tree lights. The entire... Did the entire crew go down? Nobody noticed that, but that's the second time the first time they did that, where the entire crew of a ship goes down to the planet, because they did that also with Aliens, which again, conveniently nobody noticed that. Yeah, that is another facet of this movie. Like, the planet itself it looks like, as Ash just described it, a primordial planet. We are going to hit the 20-minute mark in 2-1 now. If you guys can remember to like the video, just as Angelica Valen did over on Facebook, no matter which platform you're watching it on. And if you could just remember, if you're watching on YouTube, to go to the chat and vote in the totem poll what your ranking of this movie is. If you've seen it before, and as well as if you're seeing it for the first time. Your options are high, medium, and low, high stakes, shallow grave, and bottom of the burial. And you better not even tap low, bottom of the burial. Don't do it. Don't do it. So the spacesuits worn by Tom Skerritt, John Hurt, and Veronica Cartwright were huge. They were, as you can see, bulky items lined with nylon with no outlets for breathing or condensation, which they hadn't factored in. Again, this was at the onset of the next stage of costume and makeup. So as the actors and actress were working under hot studio lights in conditions in excess of 100 degrees, they spent most of their time passing out. A nurse had to be on hand at all times to keep supplying them with oxygen, because though it might look like space suits, they're not. They're just costumes for a movie. It was only after Ridley Scott and cinematographer Derek Valentin's children were used in the suits for the long shots, and they passed out too that some modifications were made to the costumes. I've always felt that that was very poorly dubbed. Yeah. How sweet. Love at first sight, right? Yeah, it does. The planet itself looks like something, how can I put it? Of a world before it had populated life. And the fact it's barren, but it's still, there's something to it, and more than just rock formation. The wind and the the smoke really add to the character of the planet. I think we're in store for another commercial. Fortunately, there will only, after this one that's coming up, there'll only be one more commercial. But hey, what can I say? It's Hulu. Jonesy. And damn near 2 minute ad. So, although concept artist Ron Cobb did some attempts to design the derelict ship that we're about to see, his work was too grounded in realism for the irrational design, quote unquote, that writer Dan O'Bannon had in mind. So renditions by Chris Foss and Jean Mobius Gerard were felt to be too fantastic. So when H.R. Giger finally designed the famous horseshoe-shaped alien craft, which would be known by the nickname the Big Croissant among the cast and crew, this was much more of an appealing design, and it was very much more in line with what Dan O'Bannon was conceptualizing. I wish we would get more movies like this. I mean, honestly, how often do we get genre defining movies anymore? And it's really unfortunate. Like, on the one hand, like the 70s and the 80s were something of a frontier for the genre, and in movie cinema in general, just because you're talking about the the threshold being crossed into the next evolution of makeup effects. So, okay, we're back to the film. Like, I get it on one hand, but on the other, it's like I just don't feel like anyone really gives it a genuine shot, a genuine attempt at, swinging for history. You know what I mean? And I think that cinema and the horror genre are less for it. Yeah, it definitely looks like they're walking through bones there. And here we go. Our resident haunted house. God, smoke is such an effective device for creating mood and just an ominous tone. That camera, that use of camera is very, it's done very well, even though it's shaky cam, but you can understand why, because it's a POV as they're approaching the derelict ship. So in the wide shots of the space jockey prop, in as you just saw, for this effect, Ridley Scott used his two sons to make. Oh, I'm sorry. No, wait. This is later on. He used camcorders, I believe, for that shot to make it much more immersive. Yeah, look how tiny they look in perspective. Leave it to H.R. Giger to make that obvious labia entry to the vessel. And signal lost. And this is where the vast majority of the of this movie's budget went to. It was so groundbreaking, and at this point in time in history, to have a set like this, not only to have such a unelaborate set, but something, and you'll forgive the description, but it does look completely alien. I don't remember what kind of bones line that wall. Might be bovine. And I also feel that here we go. I also feel it's imperative for the sake of horror to seek inspiration from art, like genuine art. And here we go. This must have blown audiences away seeing this for the first time. So in this wide shot of the space jockey prop, Ridley Scott used his two sons to make the prop seem bigger. This prop that we're looking at is 26 feet tall. I remember watching a YouTuber who described this scene as, it's perfect for horror because you look at it and you're immediately asking questions. I always found it fascinating that it looked like the bones like fused with the chair or grew around it after being deceased. They never explain that. They never show what it is that burst out of its chest. Yeah, I wouldn't go poking around in that. Very elephantine looking. I still believe like an actual origin story for this creature and the design of the aliens is doable. You just have to jettison Prometheus. It's crazy to think. I guess it's because it's not in the film for long. 20th Century Fox almost did not allow the space jockey scene to be in the movie. This was because at the time, props for movies weren't so large. And like I said, it would only be used for one scene. However, conceptual artist Ron Cobb convinced them to leave the scene in the movie as it would be the Cecil B. DeMille shot, showing the audience that this wasn't some low budget B movie. Look at that. Look at that interior. Astounding. Let me see if I can hear it. I might have missed it, but there's supposed to be the sound of a rattlesnake's tail as Kane here is being lowered. This I also thought was interesting how they're like held in stasis by this laser. Yeah, the sound of the rattle uh was supposed to signal the was supposed to si- the rattling of the snake tail was supposed to signal the presence of the alien. That's something I forgot to look up because Ridley Scott, in creating his biomechanical look for the creature, he looked at mufflers, he looked at snake bones, just multiple kinds of influences. I liked how it looks like it's dripping upwards. So the embryonic movements of the facehugger that you're seeing, these were created by Ridley Scott using his rubber gloved hands. The mechanism used to open and close the eggs were said to be so strong that it could actually rip someone's hand off. Without question, one of the scariest jump scares in horror cinema ever. So the inside of the alien eggs, as seen by Kane, it was composed of real organic material. Ridley Scott used fresh cattle hearts and stomachs that were obtained from a local butchery. The egg tube of the facehugger was sheep intestine. The design team tried several things out, but found but they found out that organic material simply provided the desired wet and gooey look that they were looking for. So the space jockey originally played a much different role in the backstory. According to the Book of Alien, in Dan O'Bannon's earliest story treatment, the planetoid used to be the home to a civilization that had disappeared millions of years ago. So these aliens performed their religion based reproduction in pyramid structures by creating eggs with a facehugger that would subsequently implant their younglings into a sacrificial lower animal. So, as concept artist Ron Cobb explained, at some point a cataclysm causes the extermination of the adults in this unique race, leaving no one to tend and nurture the young. But in a dark lower chamber of the breeding temple, a large number of eggs lie dormant, waiting to sense something warm. All right, we have another 2-minute ad on Hulu. So years later, the space jockey race comes to this planetoid on a mission of exploration and archaeology, and they are fascinated by the marvelous temple and the unknown culture. So one of them finds the egg chamber and gets face hugged. He's rescued, but no one knows what's happened. They take him back to the ship and continue their exploration of the planet's surface. When the chest burster erupts from the jockey, it goes on a killing rampage until it's shot and killed. So the alien dies but immediately decomposes as its acid eats through the hull of the jockey ship, leaving them stranded on the planet. The jockey's radio out the jockeys radio out a message that there is a dangerous parasite on the planet, that nothing can be done to save them in time, and that no one should attempt a rescue. Then the jockeys slowly starve to death. So, under pressure from budget restraints, the breeding temple was written out, and the jockeys hinted to be a sinister race who had brought the eggs with them to the planet. So, not to ruin the awe-inspiring, iconic moment of the space jockey, but the sculpture of the space jockey, designed and painted by H.R. Giger, who he was disappointed he couldn't put any finishing touches on it by the time filming came about for the scene. Unfortunately, the prop was burned and destroyed by a burning cigarette left on the model. And we're back at the movie. The unfortunate event was actually covered by local television news stations that very evening. This was a good piece of camera work here. Once you see what's actually on him, oh god, that is creepy. And it's breathing for him. That looks particularly nefarious. So, for the scene in which the facehugger attacks, the egg was upside down above the camera, hence why the dripping looked upward, will appear to be going upwards. And the operator thrust it down towards the lens like a hand puppet. Initially, the facehugger was planned to be painted green, but Dan O'Bannon, seeing the unpainted facehugger on set, and noting how inventive its Caucasian flesh tone color was, argued for it to remain as is. It's clever that they planned out having his face completely covered by this thing at all angles, it breathing for the host through like these lung sacs, and also the tail being around the throat. It's such a shame how many times we've seen the alien in films. Like what are either the first four movies, the two AVP movies, the two prequels. So what is that? 8 times, and we're due to see Alien Romulus this summer. I wish that they had a way of adding to these to the lore, you know what I mean? And I don't want to say recapturing the original feel, because I think that would kind of be a mistake, but just add to the lore of these creatures. I mean, I think that the best way to go about handling this, and look, it's always easy to say what if and have pipe dreams, and oh, this is a really great scene. It's really easy to say what if. However, I believe, oh wait, hold on. I believe that the way to go about it is you have to have an ability for the creatures, for your aliens. And give me 1 second, because we're about to hit the 40-minute mark in 2, 1 now. So guys, if you can remember to hit the like button on whichever platform you're watching this on, and also if you are on YouTube, you're on double duty. Please hit the like button, and I like to direct your attention to the totem pole in the YouTube chat. If you could just put what your film rating is for the movie, I'd greatly appreciate it. Whether it's high, medium, or low. Yeah, like I was saying, yeah, I would just very much like it if, I think the way to go about any proper alien film is character, setting, and like add just to tie it back to the sci-fi horror, add something to the perfect organism, add something to the alien. I've always thought that post aliens, where all right, the first one, you have the creature, you have, and not just the creature but its life cycle, the egg, the face hugger, the embryo, and the creature itself. In the follow-up, in the follow-up, you have multiple aliens, as well as the queen. So I wouldn't necessarily yet go into different kinds of aliens. I think that a proper follow-up would give an ability to the hive. And I just, I don't think your approach needs to be particularly straightforward. You know what I mean? In terms of, okay, monster on the loose and take it from there. You know what I mean? I think it's important to maintain that science fiction element to it by adding properties and discovering abilities that the alien is capable of. Like how does the perfect organism that can survive even in space, how does it affect its environment, like in a jungle, let's say? You know what I mean? Things like that. I forgot to mention, while they were still in the lab, shortly after the failed attempt to remove the facehugger from Kane, Ash... Oh, here we go. So Ash is seen observing an embryo monitor. So he's running all sorts of tests. And once he gets questioned, he turns the monitor off. The reason for that is because the scene reveals that Kane is aware, or I'm sorry, that Ash is aware that Kane is impregnated, and that he does not intend to disclose the knowledge to the crew. What's interesting to me is that even though it's a very advanced animal, the xenomorph is indeed an animal, and yet its environment that you see it in is like man-made futuristic structures. The predator is a much much more of a humanoid, which, and obviously it's scientifically minded with the advanced technology that it wields, and yet the environment that you would find it in is a jungle. I've always found that dichotomy interesting. It would be, I would like to see how the alien affects its environment if it were in a wilderness. Yeah, we'll see about that. Yeah, definitely a suspicious type. Either of them, though, are pretty brave for even being in the same room as this creature, though. I wouldn't take my eyes off of it, let alone be anywhere near it after seeing what it's done. The pacing for this movie is also really well handled. It definitely doesn't drag at any moment. I mean, not that weapons would really do much against it because they've seen what they've already seen that this thing bleeds acid, but I don't know, would you go in there unarmed? Why is he checking for a pulse? You would think that they would have some kind of monitor on him at all times. God, Chuck Taylor's really? Stupid. Smart. What the hell is he even holding? Is that even a flashlight? And weren't the lights on before? How interesting that like the true sequel to Alien Aliens was actually a prequel. Like that elusive. Oof, God, how badly would you freak out over a crab snake? Jesus. Those are actual like actually yeah, this is actually dead animal parts. So the dead face hugger for this autopsy was made using fresh shellfish, 4 oysters, and sheep kidney to recreate internal organs. Filming had to be done quickly because the organic material would go bad very fast under the studio lights, so you can imagine the smell. Good line. Dallas. Oh boy. He's like typical woman wanting to argue. Hey, who could blame him, right? Hey, we've all been there, Chief, so I definitely empathize. It's this might sound out of place, but it's weird to me like how men style their beards nowadays versus like how how it was done back in the day. So interestingly enough, to preserve the the shock value of the alien's appearance, no production images of it were released. Not even to offer author Alan Dean Foster when he wrote the novelization. And I could appreciate that level of mystique and preservation because you obviously don't want to spoil anything. By the way, we're done with commercials on Hulu. Luckily. Oh, I forgot that they were on the planet this whole time. Right, because they had to get Kane back to the ship, and now the ship needs to fly back to the mothership. I forgot, silly me's. Those still look like upside down boobs if you ask me. And you know what? You should ask me. Yeah, pretty much. Can we just address how useless the other female in this movie is? I forgot she was in this for a minute, and apparently so did the movie. Yeah. Is he wearing a blouse? What the hell's going on there? Not having to answer so many annoying questions. How about some cornbread? Again, like I have to commend the pacing of the movie because it really is never a dull moment. And it just moves along steady, you know? They don't linger where they don't have to. Oh, you fresh. Huh. This was expertly handled. I'm just gonna let this scene play out and speak for itself. Yeah, that was a nice touch where they're trying to prevent him from swallowing his tongue. Hmm. It's crazy how even even with modern technology, they have yet to perfect, not perfect, outdo this scene. You can only imagine how terrified people were watching this for the first time back in the day. So for the chest bursting scene, Veronica Cartwright, who plays Lambert, she screams when blood splatters on her. Her screaming and her horrified reaction, they were genuine. Just as the shocked response from the other cast members. They purposely weren't told how much blood would come out and which way it would splatter on purpose, knowing that they would have the best response if they didn't know what to expect. And that's often the case with film directors. In order to get like a genuine shock and surprise from their cast, they will often conceal how bad it's gonna be. See also pea soup. The chest bursting scene actually was not filmed in one take, despite the myth. The scene was filmed twice. So on the first take, the chest burster did not make it through Kane's t-shirt, so the crew needed to reset and shoot it again. So the failed attempt is visible in the finished film since Ridley thought it made it look like the creature was struggling to push its way out and made the scene more violent. This was seen in the Beast Within documentary. So, for the sequence, John Hurt, he stuck his head, shoulders, and arms through a hole in the mess table, linking up with the mechanical torso that was packed with compressed air to create the forceful exit of the alien. And lots of animal guts were applied, which, according to Sigourney Weaver, caused the set to smell horribly. The rest of the cast were not told that real blood and guts were going to be used, so as to provoke genuine reactions of shock and disgust, as previously mentioned. So apparently, this worked so well that Yaphet Kotto, the black man, he went home in complete shock afterwards, locking himself in a room and refusing to talk to his wife for several hours. The chest bursting scene was considered the second scariest movie moment of all time on Bravo's 100 Scariest Movie Moments in 2004. Okay, we just hit the 1 hour mark. Again, if no matter which platform you guys are watching this on, I would humbly ask if you can click the like button. And if you are watching on YouTube, if you could please, in the comments section, hit the totem pole and please be sure to vote what your film rating for the movie is. Interestingly enough, Ridley Scott's original cut was a lot bloodier. But because of the negative reactions of test audiences and the possibility of an X rating, scenes with violence and gore were cut down. Some outtakes can be seen in the making of documentaries, showing longer and bloodier versions of the chestburster scene, as well as Brett's death scene. So Ridley Scott and writers Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, they wanted H.R. Giger to design the alien creatures based on drawings from his book Necronomicon, but they had some difficulties in convincing the studio. The executives, initially, they were completely appalled by Giger's dark and disturbing imagery, but Scott's insistence finally won them over. Even so, Giger's designs still had to be changed several times because of their blatant sexuality. But that's what I mean, man. It's like there's something to be said about artists contributing to horror movies. I one of these days I'm going to be making a video for my channel going into detail. Probably not every single piece of art that has ever been in a horror movie, but definitely the standouts, and please believe that Alien is absolutely amongst them. I think this is where they find a little clue that was left for them by the new stowaway. It definitely had been there. Yeah. The application of sweat for all of them is, it's a really good touch, and you can it looks authentic, you know what I mean? Like and by authentic I mean that like it really brings out how terrified they are. What would have been nice is if the cargo that they're carrying, because this is like a mining ore processor or something, they either collected and or processed, mineral that they had mined. It would have been nice if that played a little bit more into the movie, but perhaps material for someone else to pick up on in a future adaptation. This, with the second only to the derelict ship, this has to be my favorite scene of the movie and like setting. Partially because of the mechanical look of the location. And this was a really good detail. The shed skin. And I wonder if he, at that moment, that slight look of shock, he understood the implication of what it is that he just lifted, that he just got his hands on there. So that's what I mean. Like, you can't tell me that this movie, as awesome that it is, has already explored all avenues of the creature. This is my favorite, one of my favorite scenes of this movie. Something about the chains and the dripping water. It's very it's very gothic, even though it's in a futuristic setting like a spaceship. And mind you, this the eeriness of the chains dangling. This movie came out 8 years, excuse me, 8 years before Hellraiser. It's like gothic wind chimes. Yeah, the sound of the water dripping on him is also unsettling. I believe Ridley Scott was questioned about like the inclusion of the scene, like why would they be dangling chains and dripping water? But it could be coolant. It could be the chains could be for processing the ore that has been mined. That part I don't question at all. But yeah, like I was saying, they take you through the gestation period, the gestation cycle of the alien. They show you its shed skin. It's like, I don't believe that we've seen everything. Damn. Such an incredible design. And the sound that it makes while it was opening its jaw, water or slime dripping off of it, incredible. And you don't even see it for that long. It's what, 2 or 3 scenes, quick rapid fire, and it's gone. So Ridley Scott originally wanted to use animatronics, like remote operated puppets, to portray the alien, thereby hoping to completely avoid the sight of the monster being obviously played by a man in a suit. Unfortunately, the special effect techniques at the time, they just weren't sophisticated enough for what he had in mind. But he agreed that an actor would play the part after being introduced to Balaji Badejo. So Badejo was a graphic artist who was discovered at a pub by one of the casting directors. He was 6 feet, almost 10 inches tall, with very thin arms, which is obviously exactly what they needed to make the alien look less human and more insect-like. He was sent for Tai Chi and mime classes to learn how to slow down his movements. So a special swing had to be constructed for him to sit down during filming, as he couldn't sit on a regular chair once he was suited up because obviously of the alien's tail. One interesting thing, one carryover that I think is essential is if you're going to limit the appearance of your movie monster on screen, it's important that the setting and the atmosphere give off that the creature's like always around, always watching. You know what I mean? It's almost like the monster itself bleeds into the setting. Slim to none. Haha. That's unsettling. Hmm. I forgot that they had the a rudimentary motion tracker, because the one that we normally affiliate with the Alien movies is the motion tracker that the Colonial Marines use in Aliens. That sliding bulkhead, uh, this right here, it's also kind of eerie. And the good thing is, like, it's not meant to be, like, it's not overt, but still, it's kind of freaky. The sliding effect of it and the sound that it makes. Oh yes, he did have a flamethrower. The beeping sound of his tracking is really good. It's very unsettling. Obviously, they're tight. He's going through a tight corridor here. Uh the claustrophobia is totally on point. I mean, and obviously you run the risk of, yeah, very eerie. You run the risk of burning yourself with the flamethrower. Yeah, but like I was saying, the beeping sound is good for like tension and suspense. Definitely a cat and mouse setup here, which is it's played wonderfully. And the fact that there are it's not linear, you know, he can go up, he can go down, left to right, also is unsettling because you don't know where this thing is really, and you're in tight corridors. This was another good calling card of the creature. I genuinely think that like it would be imperative to actually have a team of writers like spitballing and brainstorming how to like the different facets of an alien story, like one team, or you know, you have a team of writers and you delegate who's going to take care of thinking new concepts for the alien itself, the story, the cast, you know what I mean? And surprise, the music and the panic in the character was really well done. This I remember as a kid thinking to myself that Lambert was turning into an alien just because of the close-ups that they would have on her face. Like here. Her features are so exaggerated. Her eyes and her mouth. Interestingly enough, copywriter Barbara Gyps came up with the famed tagline, "In space, no one can hear you scream." I just, I like how, I mean, how can I put it? It's just whatever you throw at it, it won't die. You know what I mean? You can't surgically remove it when it's in the gestation period, uh, because of the acid blood. Attempting to track the thing down leaves leaves you with a one man down. You'll see how it it manages to get into spaces whenever you think you've managed to escape it. Like I like how it and the predator seemingly are like just unkillable, you know what I mean? Like the predator is a one man army, whereas the alien, like no matter what you throw at it, it still manages to slip between the cracks, or evade your defenses. And I think that's a scene that I loved. The dead man fall, the tripwire scene in Predator. I love that. Like I love you know, attempting to catch these things or attempting to evade them, not even that works. It really heightens the threat of these creatures. It shows them to be intelligent, and if you know, if someone were to employ that tactic, if it's a good, how can I put, it's a good indication of how intelligent these creatures are, whether the alien or the predator. And if anything, in a smart, a clever writer would flip the script where the alien or the predator would manage to turn the tables on any trap laid for it against the humans. Whoa. Execute Order 66. Yep. Crew Expendable. So we just passed the hour 20-minute mark, guys. If you can hit the like button on whichever platform you're watching this on, X, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, what have you. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to take to the comments section and please vote in the totem poll what your rating for the movie is. It looks like we have the all votes in the totem poll are all high stakes, as they should be. I wouldn't expect anything less. Is her nose bloody? When did that happen? And that's when we learn that there is something that ain't quite right with him. Jesus, ouch. I forgot about that. Yeah. Those models always were a bit twitchy, weren't they? Jesus. So supposedly, Ridley Scott said that this setup was about Ash's sexual repression, which is quizzical, to say the least. I don't even understand what that means. People don't want to admit it, but this scene is really idiotic. He's going to kill... Okay, she could still breathe through her mouth, dude. Like, what is even happening? I understand that he's malfunctioning, but, like, come on. This has always just completely taken me out of the movie. And that scene looks stupid. God, that is gross. The karate chop arms are... Okay. Ugh, it's all on my face. Karate chop arms. She is constantly just crying. It's hysterical. Oh, you got a little spaghetti there. That is some weird, I don't even know what the hell to call it. Engineering for a robot. Like, why would you design an android that way? Spaghetti and meatballs, right? Not the best transition, but facial prosthetics weren't what they are now. I've always felt that this scene is only really saved by the dialogue. Like how it describes the alien. And the fact that he's an android, I don't know. To me, it doesn't really do anything for the plot. This could have just been like, you know, a company man. You know what I mean? So the xenomorph and the facehugger, they only appear on screen for around 4 minutes. Ridley Scott purposely reduced the amount of screen time of the xenomorph to make its limited appearance all the more scary. He was even questioned by one of the producers about because they had this elaborate design, and he was asked point blank, like, why don't they show more of it? And he had to explain that when it's shown, only parts of it are shown. Like, it's not even you see the full body all at once in a single shot. Like, no, he was wise enough. He had the foresight to know to show only like a corner of it, like the hands or the tail or what have you, and to not show it for very long. And this is a hallmark of some of the best movie monsters. Just limiting how often it's seen drastically compared to the runtime. This is what you got with Jaws. This is what you got with Pinhead. This is what you got with Hannibal Lecter. Dan O'Bannon's the writer. His idea for the movie came from his experience on two other projects. He had worked as a writer and special effects supervisor on John Carpenter's Dark Star from 1974, which was a science fiction comedy that started out as a student project but got turned into a feature film. Halfway during the production of the movie, O'Bannon thought the movie's premise would work much better as a horror movie. So he started work on his script called Star Beast. So Dark Star was a commercial failure. but it was seen by Sicilian French director Alejandro Jodorowsky, who had acquired the rights to Frank Herbert's Dune. So Jodorowsky invited O'Bannon to help him with the book's ambitious adaptation. So O'Bannon sold all of his belongings and moved to Paris to work on the movie. While briefly working on the ill-fated project, he encountered influential artists such as Chris Foss, Ron Cobb, Jean Morbius Gerard, aka Mobius, and H.R. Giger, and their unique styles. So when Jodorowsky's Dune fell through due to lack of funding, O'Bannon took the creative team and worked on his Star Beast movie, now what we know as Alien. So, using much of the designs already created for Dune, Ridley Scott, one of the few who had also seen and actually liked Dark Star, agreed to direct. And it had since been said that Alien became the movie that Jodorowsky's Dune was supposed to be. I don't know about that. I don't think they have that much in common. Interestingly enough, and this is also a point that seems to befall many horror movie classics. Originally, no movie company wanted to make this. Even 20th Century Fox passed on it. They stated various reasons, most being that it was too bloody. The only producer who wanted to make it was Roger Corman, and it wasn't until Walter Hill came on board that it all changed. 20th Century Fox agreed to make the movie as long as the violence was toned down. And even after that, they still rejected the first cut for being too bloody. Fox also wanted another space travel movie, but George Lucas told them that a sequel to Star Wars Episode 4, it would take 3 years to make. Hence why they greenlit Alien. Boy? Who calls for their cat like that? Nobody here but us chickens. Writers Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett. So they were inspired by World War II stories about so-called gremlins, monsters that had supposedly stowed away on fighter planes. However, during the early development of their script, they ran into a writing impasse while trying to work out how their alien would actually get aboard the ship. So Shusett came up with the idea of the alien has fun time with one of them, which was eventually developed into the facehugger concept. So this method of reproduction via implantation was deliberately intended to invoke images of male, let's call it grape and impregnation. Oh my. Well, do what you do best. Cue the crying. God, she's so useless that she prevents Parker from taking it out. Yeah, there's something very eerie about like the reflective part of the dome. Yeah, I would have just taken them both out, not for nothing. That liquid dripping as it opens its mouth is always That it never gets old. Yeah, back to you. Oh man. That admittedly was creepy. Wow. Hearing those screams as you're running desperately to save these people. That again, the smoke and eventually the strobing light. I mean, peak peak suspense and tension. Yeah. Seeing what's left of them. Right here. The lighting, the corridors. So, back to what I was saying. Both writers were adamant that the facehugger victim be a man. Firstly, because they wanted to avoid the horror cliche of women being depicted as the easy first target. Secondly, because they felt that making a female the causality of a symbolic grape felt inappropriate. And thirdly, to make the male viewers feel more uncomfortable with this reversal of gender conventions. I like the elaborateness in, starting the self-destruct sequence. I can admit that the scenes where Sigourney here looks vulnerable is... It is her best acting in the role. And now we have the emission of the gas. Very well handled. I remember there's a ride maybe in Epcot Center where you see the scene, the escape scene of Alien, and it is, oh my god, as a kid it really freaked me out, but I enjoyed it, you know what I mean? Yeah, now is the escape, and this thing can be anywhere. And the head on a swivel is very well done. It just, because it really can be anywhere, and the fact that it's biomechanical and so easily hides amongst your surroundings is terrifying. And getting back to my previous point, that's what I really like about this particular monster. The fact that here we go. Oops. It's an animal, and yet it can disguise itself within locations that are more technologically inclined. I think you forgot someone. She said, "The hell with that cat." I'm having to do some backtracking. So Dan O'Bannon was hypercritical of any changes made to his script, and to be fair, he did defend some aspects of the movie that ended up being the most iconic, including H.R. Giger's designs. Although he would come on set and nitpick O'Bannon was generally welcomed by director Ridley Scott until O'Bannon lost his temper and insulted Scott in front of the whole crew. So the producers, including Walter Hill, had minimal respect for O'Bannon and largely ignored him, giving him little credit once the movie became a success. Well, that's not gonna fix the problem, you silly goose. Ridley Scott did all of the handheld camera work himself. 20th Century Fox doubled the budget from 4.2 to 8.4 million on the strength of seeing hold on. Where were we at? On the strength of seeing Ridley Scott's storyboards, which were inspired by the artwork of famed French comic book artist named Mobius, otherwise known as Jean Girard. Okay, so we just passed the 1 hour 40-minute mark. That'll be the last reminder for you guys. Just make sure to hit the like button if you can, no matter which platform you're watching this on. And if you are watching on YouTube, please take to the chat to vote what your film rating is in the totem pole. In order to heighten the sense of claustrophobia for the actors, get this, Ridley Scott actually had the walls of the set pushed slightly closer to each other every day. What a dick, right?
Emotional damage.
So H.R. Giger's initial designs for the facehugger, they were held by U.S. Customs, who were alarmed at what they saw. Dan O'Bannon had to go to Los Angeles International Airport to explain that they were designs for a horror movie. It'd be funny if the alien is in there. The actual production design of the facehugger used by sculptors to make the real prop was created by Dan O'Bannon, as O'Bannon had trained the designer. Giger wasn't available in England at the time. Giger's design for the chest burster was originally based very strongly on Francis Bacon's 3 studies for figures at the base of a crucifixion, depicting creatures that, while quite phallic, are also more bird-like, being based on the Greek Furies. Giger's doubts about this first design were confirmed by Ridley Scott. He fell about laughing at the sight of the prototype chest burster, describing it as like a plucked turkey, and Roger Deakins ended up retooling it to resemble the now classic design. The alien's habit of laying eggs in the chest, which obviously later burst out, this was inspired by spider wasps, which are said to lay eggs in the abdomen of spiders. The image gave Dan O'Bannon nightmares, which he used to create the story. Talk about the nick of time. Goodbye, Death Star. So, spider wasps lay eggs on their prey, not inside them, after which the wasp maggots simply snack on the sting-paralyzed spiders. So O'Bannon may instead have been thinking of either what are they called? Ichneumon wasps or brachionoid or brachnid wasps. The Ichneumon drills a single egg into a wood-boring beetle larva. Whereas the brachinids inject eggs inside certain caterpillars. So in either scenario, both result in fatal hatchouts, more alike to O'Bannon's alien. Get this. This movie was the first R-rated film to receive a tie-in series of toys marketed towards children, and I own them all. Man, as a kid, the only toys, maybe with the exception of Legos, that I liked as much as my Ninja Turtles, and I had, oh my god, I could tell stories of, excuse me, the Ninja Turtles that I had. I absolutely loved them. So the only toys that I loved more than those absolutely had to be my Alien versus Predator toys. Holy crap. Interestingly enough, shredded condoms were used to create the tendons of the beast's ferocious jaws, and slime was used on the slime that was used on the alien was KY jelly. As mentioned, the creature is never fully filmed or not filmed directly facing the camera due to the humanoid features of its face. Ridley Scott determined at all costs to dispel any notion of a man in a rubber suit. And he filmed the beast in varying close-up angles of its ghastly profile, very rarely capturing the entire beast for all to view. She ain't got no cakes. And there you can slightly see it. The arm. Incredible jump scare. The fact that it was like willing to like lie dormant along with her and managed to sneak on board. That's what I mean. Like this thing, there's no getting rid of it. She just blew up an entire starship and it's still with her. I think that's a very key component of both Alien and Predator. Like no matter what you throw at them, no matter what it is that you attempt, look how perfectly it fits in there. That you can't get rid of them. You have to throw everything at them and it's still not enough. I think that absolutely needs to be incorporated into the depiction of these creatures. The very conservative use of sound here is excellent. I mean, there's a reason this movie is such a classic. And hey, you know, credit where it goes to Ridley Scott. Speaking of which, there were potential directors who either were considered by the studio. Here we go. That inner mouth. That's when you get the best look at it. Got it, that dripping KY. yeah, it's like the fact that it doesn't have eyes, the fact that that inner jaw, the head, those like I call them chimney pipes that stick out of its back. It's lithe, skinny, bony gauntness. It's such an incredible design and unlike anything that came before. It truly is something unique. Like I was saying, so potential directors who were either considered by the studio or wanted to direct included Robert Aldrich, Peter Yates, Jack Clayton, Dan O'Bannon himself, and Walter Hill himself. So Aldrich in particular came very close to being hired, but the producers ultimately decided against it after they met him in person, and it quickly became apparent that he had no real enthusiasm for the project beyond the money he would have received. Oh, nice of him to lie still while she got dressed. According to David Geiler, the moment when Aldrich talked himself out of the job came when they asked him what kind of design he had in mind for the facehugger. Aldrich simply shrugged and said, well, put some entrails on the guy's face. It's not as if anyone's going to remember that critter once they've left the theater. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot by shooting your mouth off. Man, after everything she's seen and the fact that she's all alone, the fact that she's in, she doesn't have anywhere to run. This was really clever. The fact that she's like, I mean, I guess instinct at some point takes over, but man, after everything she's seen, like, she's all alone, and it's terrifying to have to do this, but I mean, truly, balls of steel. Ah, that's that strobing light effect, and again, the addition of gas. I've always liked the extended chin design, and I think it's only ever existed in this depiction of the monster. The cat gets flung out. And here, the harpoon, and obviously it's able to get back to the ship itself, but immediately it goes into like crawl space mode. You know what I mean? It's just like, my God. And finally, it is gotten rid of. And even then, that burst of energy didn't cause it to explode, interestingly enough. So as we wind down, casting call. So Harrison Ford turned down the role of Captain Dallas. Get that. Ridley Scott stated that in casting the role of Ripley, it ultimately came down to Sigourney Weaver and Meryl Streep. The two actresses had been college mates at Yale. Ultimately, Weaver was offered the job because Streep was mourning the death of her partner, John Cazale, at the time of casting. Jesus, like, the only way that you would be able to sleep after everything she has seen would have to be cryo storage. Incredible movie. I have to actually let me check real quick what the budget for this was. $11 million. And they were able to get all of this from all this movie from that small of a budget.
And now his watch has ended.
And now their watch is ended.
So, this is the part of the watch party where I would like to give some accolades that this film has received over the years. So, it was included among the American Film Institute's 2001 list of the top 100 most heart-pounding American movies. It won numerous science fiction awards and the 1980 Oscar for Best Visual Effects. It was even nominated for Best Art Direction. It's included amongst the American Film Institute's 1998 list of the 400 movies nominated for the top 100 greatest American movies. So, now is the part of the live stream where I would like to give my closing thoughts on what it is that we have seen. So, I almost struggle to find words that can precisely explain and give anyone who either has never seen this movie a clear-cut reason to see it, a clear-cut reason for them to understand why it has lasted the test of time, and for those who have seen and enjoyed it, a description that adds new layers to just the damn near peerless majesty of this film. Well, first, you can consider this a hot take, but for all the talk of truckers in space by and large, I really don't care about the characters in this movie. I mean, you can talk about how relatable they all are and how these people can be you, but I mean, all their chatter is rather mundane and non-engaging. I'm not really rooting for any of these people. I mean, they're talking about contracts and the bonus situation. I find it all aggressively banal. And like the only one that shows any charm or character would have to be Dallas, and we all saw what happened to him. And if that doesn't get under your skin enough, here's another hot take. When I express my disinterest with the lives of the characters, I especially regarding their own survival throughout the film. Oh yes, you can throw Ripley in there too. I mean, I've never found her portrayal here particularly interesting. I don't really know much about her. And yes, the acting when she is vulnerable, like towards the end, when she's truly alone, when she's she's attempting her escape, and she has her head on a swivel. I don't know, those just seem the most authentic and vulnerable. But for the most part, I don't know who this character is in terms of the story, and I just don't see much of her to be able to identify with. She doesn't have a really much of a plot. Much of a character arc. So I've never been the biggest fan of hers. Contrast that with, for instance, the Sarah Connor Chronicle, the Sarah Connor character. Either the first Terminator or the second one, and I'm much more on board with her plight, her stakes, and her story more than I ever was with Ellen Ripley. The more that this movie has aged, the more that I realize that the true star of the show is H.R. Geiger. I mean, just the biomechanical nature of this creature, the life cycle, the fact that, as I previously mentioned, the look of it, the knowing that it was made out of snake bones, you can see an exposed protruding rib cage. It has no eyes. The dome head, the prolonged, truly alien skull that is unlike anything that we would see in nature or on our planet, certainly. The fingers, the arms, the lankiness of it, the ferocity. I mean, it's incredible. It is absolutely a sight to behold. For all the praise that gets heaped upon Albert Hitchcock's Psycho, John Carpenter's Halloween, Wes Craven's Scream, all deserving of their accolades, has anyone ever bothered to notice that extraterrestrial movies were utter trash before Alien? I mean, look, sure, you got the original The Thing from Another World, The Day That the Earth Stood Still, and War of the Worlds, but bro, the Invader movies from the 50s, those extraterrestrials were never scary, not even during their own time. You could look at the Universal monsters and say and appreciate what they brought to cinema. And how can I put, like, you can put yourself in the frame of mind of people back then. You may not be scared or terrified of the Invisible Man now, but you can, I don't know, I at least can put myself in the shoes of moviegoers back then. But the Alien movies that we got from the 1950s, the you know, even with, and mind you, we had the cultural thrust of Area 51 and the Roswell landing and all of that, and these creatures still weren't scary. They didn't put extraterrestrials on the map. They weren't the equivalent of Frankenstein or Dracula, even though they were the heir apparents post-Universal monsters. There's a reason that, despite the slew of alien movies that we got to go along with kaiju films of the mid-20th century, that the biggest star to come out of that decade, financially and literally, was Godzilla. He is iconic. All extraterrestrial movies of that era are simply not. Similar to how Psycho and Halloween and Scream took all of the tropes and ingredients of their time to create these memorable monsters, Alien blazed its own trail and gave moviegoers a creature from another world to actually fear. It's wild to me that in the damn near half century that this film has been in the public consciousness, that no one has connected those dots and give Alien its due. Alien drew a line in the sand and defined its own genre. The BC was all these goofy looking aliens with antenna and like veiny skulls, and the AD was post-Alien, when you could actually take this subject matter seriously in the horror genre and fear these creatures. Do you even realize that alien invaders were so bereft of substance that you watching this, you have never even seen a classic extraterrestrial film with either the gray aliens or Martians? Process that. No, I'm not talking films with those monsters in them. Nah, don't muddy the waters. I'm talking about a film with little green men or pale aliens with bulbous heads on the level of great horror films like The Shining or Candyman. Nah, you ain't ever seen it. And the entirety of horror owes a debt to Alien, since the genre on cinema was 69 years old by the time of the film's debut. That's an ironic number considering the film's sexually invasive tone. You can thank me via Patreon for dropping that knowledge, because you will only hear that type of insight on the mind's eye from Incarnate. This movie, again, for me, it's tied for my favorite scary film and movie monster, along with A Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger, who just so happened to be celebrating a 40-year anniversary this year. Stay tuned on that front. Let's get the obvious out of the way, because I have heard this for years when it comes to the alien monster as well as the movie. It is not Lovecraftian. There is precisely nothing within the pantheon of the Cthulhu mythos that appears like H.R. Giger's sexual demon. None of the deities, the species, or unspeakable abominations appear biomechanical, depend on human hosts for procreation, and thus mirror the xenomorph life cycle of egg layer, egg, parasite, embryo, larva. And yet, people still refer to the alien as a Lovecraftian monster. Now, yes, the writer, Dan O'Bannon, had a familiarity of Lovecraft. Yes, H.R. Giger's painting that inspired the alien is referred to as Necronom 4 in the book Necronomicon, the Lovecraftian Book of the Dead. And yet, for the reasons I already listed, the alien is its own thing, divorced from Lovecraftian horror. Guillermo del Toro shamelessly but predictably masturbated his own ego in a Lovecraft documentary, making comparisons between At the Mountains of Madness and Alien. The derelict ship in Alien is not a city-sized ship. No one thought of it that way. The similarities of dead denizens is a massive divergence, especially considering the size of the space jockey in the engine room. And the mention that the setting contains something still alive, again, is distinguished in Alien by a preservation field suspended over the facehugger eggs. Sorry, Guillermo, you're clearly reaching in a deliberate attempt to sound smart. I award you no points, and you look stupid as always. Hey, Guillermo, the day that you make a movie that comes even close to the horror, classical impact, and cultural relevance that Ridley Scott did with Alien, then you can join the conversation, but not before. Until then, you can waddle your overrated ass back to making kaiju knockoffs like Pacific Rim or Blind Alley video games like Death Stranding. I've never liked the idea of the translucent dome with a visible skull within, because not only is it visually distracting, but that would serve to tie it back to humanity. And as I mentioned during the trivia of this film, Ridley Scott himself mentioned that the thing, the alien, is supposed to be entirely alien, divorced from Homo sapiens entirely. So, all that being said, the alien joins the upper echelon of iconic movie monsters. Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Godzilla, Romero zombies, Leatherface. To me, this H.R. Giger's nightmarish monster was the absolute pinnacle of practical effects. The whole concept of the man in the suit, and for me, it set the table for the makeup wizardry that we would see in the 80s from the likes of An American Werewolf in London, Pumpkinhead, The Fly, Hellraiser. It is the seminal sci-fi horror creature, and for all the reasons I've listed and more, it is tied for my favorite movie monster and horror film. And again, from the film itself, the claustrophobia, the fog, the strobe lighting, like, it absolutely merits its standing and the level that it has reached, the status of the haunted house in space. And I absolutely commend this film for it. So now is the part where I like to give recommendations of other films you can watch that are similar in tone to what we've already helped ourselves to.
There's a formula to it. A very simple formula.
Make it a blockbuster, right?
So, if you're in a mood to keep the good times rolling, other films in this vein, pun intended, that I would recommend include Predator, obviously, Leviathan, Deep Star 6. In terms of body horror, you can't go wrong with The Fly, The Thing, or Hellraiser. So, let me see. Let me get to a chat by our #1 fan, who happens to be Slayer the Cat. Yes, thank you. You've given thanks and props to H.R. Giger art and contribution to the Alien movie. I'm so happy. Also, hello. Hello as always, Slayer. So this... Oh, before I get to that, if you like the watch party, like the video, and share it with your friends. If you hated it, subscribe to the channel and share it with your enemies. So, what is on the scene for the Mind's Eye Theater, and all things incarnate? Whew, this has been a doozy of a week. Even though I was very busy at my job, this was a full week of content that I released. So this is what it looked like, what my schedule looked like for this week of releases at the beginning of the week. This is what it looks like, and this is what it turned into. So, this past Monday, I did my 4th narration of Alice Asylum, the narration to the canceled game's plot. On Tuesday, I released my amusing footage of clips from my first playthrough of Perish, the video game. On Wednesday was my second live stream for the movie. I'm sorry, for the video game. Yesterday, I did a watch party of The Mummy in celebration of its 25th anniversary, and today was obviously the watch party for Alien for its 45th year anniversary. So, as you can see, this was a very busy week. This was the first time I did I had a Mind's Eye coming attractions, and the schedule, half of it changed from the beginning of the week to the end. So I invite all of you to take a gander at those videos, especially. Please take a look at my watch party that was just last night for The Mummy, also a timeless classic of the 90s. So, what do we have for coming attractions? It's looking like I will have a new slate for myself of daily releases for the channel next week. I do know that I will be submitting my editorial for the May edition of Hotness TV magazine, the magazine that I write on a monthly basis. So that I'll be making my editorial and submitting it tomorrow to my business associate, and she will most likely release the magazine on Wednesday, May 1st. If not sometime during next week. I have plenty of live streams that I'll be doing next week, so I'll be sure to mention that. I will for sure be doing my final narration of Alice Asylum, the game plot, on, let me see, Monday. Tuesday will be the return to my regularly scheduled date and time for the Mind Games. I'll be returning to the game Perish. I will see about Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Most likely those will be releases of what they were supposed to be this week. Wednesday, fingers crossed, will be the release of my Bray Wyatt fantasy booking. Thursday will most likely be my Mind's Eye Inquisition live stream where I discuss what Halloween releases are on tap, not just for this year, but for the next 3 Halloweens. And believe me, they're not much to write home about. Other than that, on Friday, I'll be releasing my impressions of Baghead. So that is what is on tap for Mind's Eye Theater, Mind Games, Mind's Eye Radio, and the Mind's Eye. I genuinely hope that you enjoyed this watch party. I can't sing enough praises for the movie Alien. I'm always happy to relive classic horror films and celebrate these anniversaries. So I do hope not only that you guys have enjoyed my narration, I hope I've given you some insights regarding this film, but also I do hope that you'll join me next time when I do another one of these watch parties. So, mark your calendars and say your prayers. I've been incarnate, offering a word of caution. Fear the worst, so long you recognize who's best. If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Warn your friends. Warn everyone.